Just got this reamer kit, sold by Grizzly, got it on Amazon. Made in India for Grizzly. These are, the glare is kind of a problem there, over chucking reamers and under chucking reamers. All the same sizes. I guess you would say nominally all the same sizes. 1/8, 3/16, 1/4, 5/16, 3/8, 7/16, and 1/2. And after just doing a little quick research on the internet, it seems like an under chucking reamer will give you a press fit. An over chucking reamer will give you a slip fit. And so I believe I want the over chucking reamers for, at least for these brackets, so that the pins can fit in. And I don't think they're supposed to be a press fit. So I'm gonna I've got another couple brackets over at the drill press. Oh, by the way, I had to remake 2 of these. I drilled a center hole in all 4 of them, and 2 of them go inside the spar where the compression tube needs to go over the centering or the alignment pin there. 2 of them go on the other side, the rear side of the rear spar, and so shouldn't have a hole there. It wouldn't matter, but in keeping with my commitment to do my best, within reason at least, I made 2 new brackets, and I will not put a hole in these 2, and they'll go on the rear of the rear spars. One on the far right end of the lower rear spar, the other one on the left of the lower wing rear spar. Very outside edges. These 2 bolt holes will hold it to the wing. There'll be a compression fitting inside the spars here. This will protrude up above the wing, and I think is the attach point for the interplane struts. Alright, now I'm wearing a glove because I just want to freehand this so that the reamer will line up on the piece, so that the piece will kind of fall into place in line with the reamer. And I don't want the piece to start spinning if the reamer catches it and tear up my hand. Don't ask me why that's on my mind. Let's just say there was blood and a bent 1/4-inch drill bit involved. So, I've never done this before. I've never owned reamers until just 2 days ago, and I've never reamed anything. So I'm going to put a little WD-40 on here. I've heard that's good for lubricating aluminum when you're machining it. So let's, actually, one other thing. What I need to do, I'm up here fiddling with the belts on my drill press. I'm going to slow it down. You're supposed to ream at low speeds. So let's slow this thing down. Let's see here. I need to flip some belts around a little more here. I'll actually show you that in a second. You gotta take the belts off completely and swap them around. Alright, here are the belts. Oh, by the way, my drill press, in case you're curious, is a Jet JDP 17MF. There's a better look at it. So here are the belts. So I actually had to take this one. This one was down here. This one was up further, so I had to take one off entirely, which is just super easy. Flip them around. Actually, it tells you what the speeds are there. So with the rear belt on the top and the front belt on the very bottom, I get 200 RPM, which is the slowest that this drill press will run. So that's what I've got. You're supposed to ream at low speeds. Sorry for slamming that. So let me give it a shot. Oh yeah, it's much slower. And I took a drill bit out of my DeWalt box of drill bits and chose the one that's just under 3/16, which I think is like 11/64 or something. The hole size is supposed to be .187, and I did a little research, and 3/16 is .1875, so I'm guessing that the final hole is supposed to be 3/16. So just like that. That wasn't too terrible. Took a little bit of force to get it started, but then it went right in. You can see the plastic, this aluminum, I think that's what's called all-clad, comes coated with this, and you could see it lifting up, but I'm leaving it on as long as I can just to protect the aluminum while I work on it. Let's take a closer look at it. So you can see the interior of the hole a little bit there maybe. Not the very best shot. I would need to bring some lights in close, I think, to get better illumination and get closer without casting a shadow. Anyway, if you need a precise, smooth hole, you've got to ream it. A drill bit will not suffice. And when you're building an airplane, you want holes to line up and to be snug. Because when things start wiggling around, they'll just get looser and looser, and the holes will get elongated, and eventually you may run into trouble. So I just ran this, actually I hit all the corners and ran these holes over some 220 grit sandpaper to get the burrs off these edges. I didn't want to take a lot of aluminum off, just as little as possible, to get the burrs and the sharp edge off this piece and off these holes. If I had used even the 120 grit, which is the finer belt on my belt sander, I think it just would have taken off too much metal. And I really like the edges I got just by running it by hand over the sandpaper. I just left the paper on the table and ran the edges over it, and then again left the paper on the table and ran this back and forth over the holes to leave as much metal as possible and just get rid of the sharp edges. Now I need to countersink this center hole to accept this, but again this is reamed to 250 thousandths or 1/4 inch, and that's what this screw that I just dropped is. It's 1/4 inch. You can see the part where there's no threads right near the head. That should fit snugly, and in fact it does, in this hole right there. So I'm real happy with my first reaming job. And I don't think I have the hardware yet for this 3/16 hole. That'll be for one of the wires, the wing wires, I believe, or the interplane strut. I don't think I have that hardware yet. But I can test my reaming with this little screw, and it seems to fit perfectly. I'm real happy with that. Now I'll just countersink that until I get this head flush with the workpiece. Seems like I'm going to countersink this until there's the 1/4-inch ream is completely gone before this head sits flush. So that's weird. Still a little bit of the hole left, the original hole. Still have a ways to go. You know, what I'm curious about, actually, you know what I think? You know what I think? I think that the angle of this countersink is steeper than the angle on this screw head. So that the edges of this hole, the screw head is hitting the edges, but as you get down toward the shank, that's not touching the countersunk hole at all. So I think this countersunk hole needs to be broader and have the angle drop down on this countersink. I didn't even think about this angle being different than the angle of that head, because what's going to happen is I'm going to countersink all the way through this and not have any of my reamed hole left for that shank to fit snugly in before the head of this is flush with this. Whereas if this angle, if the shoulder were dropped down and the angle weren't as steep, then I think I'll be able to get a deep enough countersink to get the head flush and still not machine away my reamed hole. Because I think it's important that the shank of this screw, the non-threaded part, fits, that there's some reamed hole left for that to fit in. So I think this reamer is not the right, or this countersink bit is not the right one. I think the angle's wrong. So I'm going to investigate that. There's still some of my bored hole left, or my reamed hole. There's still some of the material in here. I haven't countersunk all the way through yet. So I think this bracket's still good. I think what'll happen is if I just get the right bit, I'll ream a larger, or countersink a larger countersink without taking away any more of the reamed hole. So I'm going to investigate that, and I'll get back to you.